So we're going to look at converting quadratics. And to do that, we're going to look at the three major ways they're written. So write the general equation of each. So we'll see if you can kind of name them as we go through. Does this equation, this general form, do you know what the name is for this one, what they normally call this? Say it again. Yeah, so this is standard. Good. So we have standard. Then we have another version that looks like this. And if you think you know it as I'm going through it, let me know. Do you know what this form is usually called? Yep, this one's called factor. Sometimes you use an R or an S. I mean, it could be different. I'm not. Do you use R and S for factored when you write it? Okay, so maybe not. They could use different letters, but what's key is those sets of brackets. They really let you know you're in factored. And then the final one here looks like this. And do you know what this one is called? Yes, vertex. Good. So I'm going to write vertex, and I forgot to write factored above. Okay. So for quadratics, you really actually just go between these three. And the reason is, between these three, you can pretty much find out every key part of information, whether it has to do with graphing or algebraically manipulating quadratics. These three forms give you a lot of information. But the tricky part is, and usually what you're trying to learn, is how to move back and forth between these. Think of these like a triangle, kind of like in maybe grade 8 science when you're learning about solids, liquids, and gas. Same idea. You're kind of moving between these threes to get different pieces of information. To go from standard to factored form, we factor. Okay. You can also use something called the quadratic equation, but I don't think you guys have actually encountered that yet. Have you? Have you written something that looks like this? Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac. Anything like that? Does that look familiar, this big long equation? Not yet. Not yet. I tell you, you will learn this equation. And what it is this will take you from any standard form to a factor form, because it actually, some things are unfactorable. You can usually use this formula to do it then. If we're going from standard to vertex, we usually use something called completing the square. Okay. But I also have two little formulas you can memorize, and they can kind of give you the answers too. So we can learn completing the square because your teacher may want you to know it. But it will also teach you two little formulas that will get you the answer relatively quickly. Okay. And then when we go back from factored to standard, we're expanding and simplifying. Okay, and same thing when you're going from vertex to standard, you're expanding and simplifying. They don't go through this one too much, but going from vertex to factored and factored to vertex, you do factored to vertex a little, and that's where you kind of find the axis of symmetry. And then you find the x value of the vertex and the y value of the vertex by substitution. Like you find the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry happens to be the x value. Then you plug the x value in to find the y value. We'll call it substitution. So, you can't really see that. Hold on. There you go. So use axis of symmetry. You've kind of done that a little bit. What you probably haven't done is going from vertex to factored, and they don't tend to show it too much. It has to do with yeah, you probably won't do it. There's a way to do it. It's just usually not covered. And that's because you can kind of take a roundabout way of just going back to standard and then factoring to get here if you really, really need it. If we run into it at all, I'll show you a fast way the little way to jump here. But it's essentially just, it's solving for x, but they just don't often do it in the class you're in. Okay, so these are the general forms, and there's a lot of info on this page. Where is it? There we go. That's a little better. a lot of information on this page, but this essentially just tells you how to move between everything, okay? What we're going to focus on today is we're going to focus on completing the square and that little formula. So I'm going to jump to a new page, and actually, you know what we'll do? I'll make that another video.